Okay, so we're going to spend a class period talking about some of the religious beliefs and practices in ancient Egypt. So there's a couple of things we do need to know about here. I suppose pyramids are are tied to religion. Obviously, they're talking about the afterlife there. So they're certainly not only a physical structure but also has religious implications. So I think that's part of it. But we are going to talk about the other religious aspects of life in ancient Egypt. We will do that in a couple slides here. So away we go. All right, so here's your first one. I'll give you guys a second to copy this. So mummies, I'm sure, are not a brand new thing to you guys. You've probably heard of them before. But mummification is the idea of preserving a dead body by kind of wrapping it and treating it with certain things. So it's a lot of, they wrap it in cloth that's kind of soaked in embalming oil, etc. Mummification is a process that was only done to the highest classes of people. It is not done to just, regular normal citizens. So, if you were just a normal citizen in ancient Egypt, when you died, you weren't mummified. You were just, thrown in a giant mass grave with all the other people that died that day. Okay, so there was no special treatment afforded to you or anything like that. This is something that was done on the upper classes. Ancient Egypt, in this case, teaches us a lot about the human anatomy because they were doing all kinds of fancy things. People that are also part of the nursing program might learn about some of the ties to ancient Egypt with regard to anatomy and things like that. But when they mummified a body, they removed the internal organs, most notably the brain. They had a special hook thing that they'd stick up someone's nose, and they can pull someone's entire brain out through their nose piece by piece. So that's a nice visual to conjure up. But in addition to that, they're buried with jewels and coins. So mummies are buried with things. And the reason for that is because in ancient Egypt, part of the religious belief was that you can take things with you when you die. So, when they crack open these, as of yet unseen tombs of Egyptian pharaohs, oftentimes there's all kinds of treasure, what we would call treasure in there. A lot of gold, a lot of pottery, a lot of, valuables. And it was because oftentimes the belief was that you can bring with you anything that you had when you died. This is not a belief that's specific to Egypt. Another good example of this is ancient China. Ancient China believed that you could take things with you when you die, up to and including people. So in the case of Egypt also, and notably China, there's times where slaves are buried with the ruling class, sometimes alive. Because then those people who are mummified, the ruling class, will have the opportunity to have those servants in the afterlife. That was kind of the idea. So in China, there was, one leader of a dynasty is buried with an entire, what they call a terracotta army. An entire army is buried with him, so he could take that with him, when he passes. So that idea that you can kind of take things with you from this life into the afterlife is, certainly a popular idea with Egypt and other places also. Next. All right. Hieroglyphics is something that many of you might have heard of before also, but this is the writing system of ancient Egypt. It is a written language, not a spoken language. And basically it's pictographic. So it's pictures and symbols that take the place of actually, phonetically spelled out words. So this is their written language. And there's a lot of it existing. So we do have, some stuff to work with there. But they are called kind of the words of the gods. Writing up until, the very recent past, literacy is something that is reserved for the highest classes of people. The vast majority of the population is not literate, meaning they cannot read or write. So oftentimes when we're talking about languages, we have to be thinking about the time period that we're talking about also in order to understand how pervasive the use of a language is. Everyone can speak a language, but reading and writing is a different story. So in this particular case, it's no different. Reading and writing is a skill that is kind of reserved for the highest classes, in this case, priests. So hieroglyphics was their written language, although it was used by a very small percentage of the population because not everyone is literate. So something worth mentioning. Okay, one more slide. All right, so while you finish up, another popular topic of discussion with regard to Egyptian religion oftentimes is this, the Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead is kind of an interesting text. It's not one particular book that's, several copies are made of. The Book of the Dead is something that was specific to each pharaoh. Pharaoh is the ruling class, the ruler of ancient Egypt. So this is something that was specific to each ruler. A lot of the book was the same from ruler to ruler, but there are parts of it that are highly personalized. So the Book of the Dead, what it is basically, is a guidebook for the afterlife. In ancient Egypt, a lot of the belief was that the afterlife involved some kind of journey or trial or trip that you had to take, kind of, in almost this supernatural kind of realm. So this Book of the Dead is supposed to be like an instruction manual that's designed to help guide the ruler through the afterlife. So that's the general idea. There's a lot of mythology. There's a lot of quote unquote magic that is part of the Egyptian religion. I mean, there's magic, quote unquote. There's part of a lot of religions, but it's no different here. So there's a lot of interesting elements to the Book of the Dead, and it's something that we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at today. So for this period, I just assigned this. This is AIM 3.4 Egyptian religion. We got two quick things here. We have an Ed puzzle that I wanted you guys to check out that's going to wrap up, geography in the Nile. I'm still kind of, practicing my Ed puzzle skills, so I wanted to assign you guys one and see how it works out. And then there's a document here about the Book of the Dead. There was an exhibit of one of the Books of the Dead on display at a museum, and this is kind of the literature that came with that exhibit at the museum, and explains a lot about how it works, what's included in it, what it's for, what it all means, etc. So we're going to use this document here to answer the questions on this worksheet here that I've assigned to all of you. Seeing as how I gave you an Ed puzzle also, there's very few questions. Make sure you answer them in complete sentences, and make sure you answer the exit slip also. So that's the classwork for